I want to say a little bit about this budget we're getting ready to work on. Um, that's why Dixie sits in the back so she can talk. Remember to talk in the microphones. Budgets are a little funny sometimes because you do this and you think, okay, I've reached my goal, I'm done. No, your goal is the minimum. The goal is what you have to figure out what you're going to do to survive. And this budget can be extremely complex or it can be relatively simple, however you want to use it. But please, please, please fill out some of it, look at it, understand it, and know what you've got to do to achieve your goals. And then we'll work on holding you accountable. I'm never going to look at your budget. It's not my business. It's yours. Okay. So let, let me give you an overview. Tulio, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. I want to shrink that all the way down, get it down there. So what I sent you was a budget that looks sort of like this. And some of you may, just like I did, log in and say, well, there's nothing in there. Well, you have to slide it all the way over to get to the numbers. And we're going to look at, let me see if I can move this up at the top. You have to look at this with all the tabs at the bottom to understand what we're doing. And I want to warn you, some of the numbers that you put in on different pages populate other pages for you. So all of these integrate to work together. The first is, what do I got to spend every year to be in business? Now, I've taken the liberty to say all of you are going to pay MLS dues and annual realtor dues, and I put it in there for you. And as a demonstration down here at the end, it says $1,189. And then when I go to my goals page, you're going to find out, well, it's already in there. Now, this 500 may be in there and you can take it out or you can do it from the first page. But just in general, when I put things in my budget on this first tab, it's going to show up on this second tab. So I don't have to copy them down and go from one to the other. We're going to look at these more. I'm just kind of right now explaining to you what the tabs are. The teams, you don't need to worry about. Years 3 and 5, I'll talk about those next week, but they're pretty minor. Don't get all wound up in those. And then you have your monthly breakdown. Well, a breakdown, I went through and figured out what percentage of our MLS closings going back to 2014 happen every month. I did this for you and put them in there for you. What this means is in January, 4.8% of your business should close to reach your budget number for the year. You want me to repeat that again? Yes, please. In January, if I have a number of $100,000, that's what I want to make at the end of the year. 4.8% of my closings should happen in January statistically. And then in March, 6.7%. Cece's going, yeah, I get that. You get it?
No, I was smiling at the text message I just got.
Okay. And don't forget to talk into microphones. So the only reason we put those in there is not to say, oh, you need to get precisely 5% of your business that month. It's for you to kind of understand, am I ahead, am I behind, and so on. This next column over here is also a bit confusing because according to the charts and the National Association of Realtors, you need 100 days from the time you start working with the client till you get to a closing. Let me say that again. You need 100 days from the time you start working with the client to get to a closing. That's the national average statistically. Now, of course, last year screwed that up and 2008 screwed it up and so on. But the idea then is if I want to get 4.8% of my closings in January, Then in October, I need to have 1.2 appointments and 10 contacts. So what this budget is trying to break together for you is for me to get my entire year, which is everybody. This is what I need to do by month. And this is the month I need to start on to get my January closings. Everybody got that? Any questions? Okay. Now, again, you can get all tangled up into, oh, I didn't do this or I did that and so on. I get that. What we're trying to do is say, let's shoot for these goals. 168 hours. This is how many hours you're going to commit per day to get everything closed by the end of the year. We'll go over this one next week because until we know our numbers, we don't know what our goals are. And finally, there's this sheet. So Lance asked this question last year and I didn't know how to figure it out. And I figured it out this year. What is my real split? Because we have caps here and the caps based on franchise fee, caps based on this and everything. So what happens is when you put certain numbers in here, it will tell you what your actual split is based on what you did that year. Does that make sense?
No. Say it again.
When you put the total GCI and put in what you actually took home, that's your 1099, it will tell you what your real split rate is, not what we have with this cap, that cap, and the other.
So it takes a percentage. So if you capped and you made more money
Mhm.
beyond the cap, it's going to take that.
Into
percentage.
consideration. And it does that same thing for your franchise fees. That's a good question because that's where we're going next. So I noticed that over there, Dixie's got, let me see if I get this now down to where I can manage it a little better. When you sign into Brokerage Engine, we're going to use Sharon Taylor's account because she's not here anymore. And then I'm going to open my business planner and tell you some of my numbers so you'll understand. Help if I could spell. I reactivated Sharon's account just so I could show you where the numbers are. Please understand that I firmly believe that all of your numbers are very confidential and they're yours. I had someone else who volunteered. Well, actually, two people volunteered to let me use their numbers. I don't like to do that. So I'm using somebody's numbers who left 2 years ago. Okay. Well, I'm using the numbers from 2 years ago. So inside your Better KS, it looks just like this. And I'm pretending to be Sharon Taylor. Over on this side right here, it says Agent Production. When you click on Agent Production, it brings up a page that looks completely blank and you're going, what the dickens does that mean? Well, it means you haven't run the report. I don't see any use to running the report this year because you haven't finished out the year. I would go back and click on current year. You can type in whatever dates you want, but if you click on current year and scroll down, it says last year. You click on last year and run report, and you get how many sides you have. You get your total sales volume. You get your total GCI or gross commission. And what GCI means is the check that you brought back to the office that then we split up and did things with. That's your GCI. So this takes into account if you cut your commission. It takes into account when you reach your cap. It takes into account all of that stuff, the $68 and things like that. And then it's got your total agent gross. And the total agent gross would be how much of a check you receive. Now, these numbers are a little confusing because they say 69.51K. Well, what that actually means is 69,510. This one would be 51,930. Okay. So when you get to this page, and you can look at all of your transactions here, you can find out what dates they closed, you can get your average sales price, you can do all that stuff. But from here, what we want are these two numbers, your total GCI and your agent gross. So then we come back to your business planner, and the total GCI was 69,510, I believe. I'm going to use that number, and you type it in there. And then the next number would have been 51,930. So her actual split, when all of her fees were withdrawn and so on, came up to 74,000. And that depends. Did she cap? Did she not cap? You know, things like that. Does everybody understand that? What do you mean what happened to it? Well, it did. Oh, because Tulio's typing something in and it's screwing things up.
No, I don't type in nothing.
Well, somebody wrote in GC. I don't know what they are, but okay. So now somebody wrote in 54. Somebody must be doing this live, and that's why it's doing it. We'll go to mine in a minute where it doesn't share, so you won't have any problem.
So this spreadsheet is shared on SharePoint.
The
So
one
if you
I
wanna-
sent you is
Okay, so how do we get it for our own use? And so we're
I-
not always,
I
changing it.
opened it, and then if I remember correctly, if you click on file in the top left corner, you can download it and save it. That's what I did. So the one I'm using right now is it's on my desktop. You guys
Right.
can't see it.
okay.
so
That's-
this is
she's
save
looking
as.
over my shoulder.
Go into file up here, save as, and you can download a copy. Well, we'll help Dixie here in a minute. Lance, do you mind looking over his shoulder and seeing if so now that I've at least shown you the basis of how that works, I want to go back and use mine. And when I need to go over here and find numbers, we'll do it because mine, nobody else can look at, screw with, or anything. So I went across mine and I looked at all of these business expenses that you might have. For example, you don't have a lot of signage, but you may do some print like you do. You print out, you know, nice little door hangers hang out. You might have flyers. You might buy something online like SEO help or AdWords or Facebook. They have place for technology. And then they have, if you have some travel or some other stuff. So as we look down mine, I have training and coaching in $500 every other month. I put in all of your MLS dues. I put in client gifts that I might give out every month. Technology. Well, I have a cell phone. Am I going to upgrade my computer and so on? Now, again, you may say, I don't want to do that much work. I sort of get it. And you may not want to put it in by month. You may want to say, well, I know I spend X number of dollars per year. You can just fill that out if you want to. If you put it in by month, it totals it over here for you. But if you don't want to, you don't have to. I'm getting blank stares. Is everybody okay still? Any questions? So when I get to this bottom number, it will automatically fill into the next slot. Now, depending on how you run your household and whether you want to take this budget that far, they have a place here at the bottom for your own personal budget, be it food, groceries, mortgage, car payment, and all that other stuff. Because at the end of the day, we want to know how many real estate transactions do you need to produce to fill out this budget. Now, I'm going to take Ray just for a minute. Let's say that Ray has such a good retirement, he doesn't pay any of these out of that. Well, okay, don't put it in, Ray. Or say that all my mortgage is covered by what my wife does. Don't put that in. You'll also see over here that, like I said, I just started filling out my annual because I didn't need to figure it out per month. But if you put it in by month, then you'll know what you need to do every month to get your numbers. That's all it's for. You don't have to get that complicated, but it's there if you want. What we really need to do in my business, at a minimum, how much money do I need to make in real estate to make sure I'm not losing money in real estate? This number is then going to come over to goals solo agent. And again, it's not coming over all the way, but goals solo agent would be, well, I have a couple of things that I want to do this year that are above and beyond what were in my budget. That's what these goals are. So I want to fix the transmission in my car. Still works, but it's going to cost me $4,000 to make it work perfect. And you're going, really? In a 2007?
You're better off going on a cruise with your kids for 10 grand than going to Worlds of Fun.
Worlds of Fun, Japan. I don't know. But the idea is, if you have a couple of goals you want to do, let's say Dixie wants to expand her swimming pool to the other half of her yard. Let's say Lance wants to go on 3 cruises this year because he had so much fun. This is where you would put in those kind of goals.
So I'm going to jump in here real quick.
Sure.
The way you're doing this is the step-by-step that you're doing this is what we need to be doing, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And we're
Doing it
covering
in a chronological order, not jumping around.
right now, we're doing it by steps. So for me, the thing I think you need to do first is, well, what was my actual split? And we'll get to where that went. Second, how much money do I need to make? Well, we did that on the first page. That comes over to this page, and then it starts breaking it down. Well, my personal goals from up above are 14,000. My expenses from the first page already populate here. My business expenses already populate here. So as I'm showing you not only the order you should do it, I'm showing you why to do it in that order. Do it on the first page to figure out what you spend on everything. And it's got line items to remind you, oh yeah, last year I did printing. Oh yeah, last year I had dues. Oh yeah, last year I had, and fill those out, and it comes over here. Then you get to choose, well, do I want profit or do I want to break even? And so you pick the number of profit you want.
Is there anywhere, and maybe you're going to get to it, is there anywhere in here where we can add additional income from other sources?
I don't know. Let's go look.
Yeah, don't waste time in class doing that. You and I can talk about that
Well,
later.
Yeah.
That's because I figure in the earnings I have from teaching real estate classes.
Sure. Well, let's go back to the budget for a minute. My personal expenses, total expenses. I think this is all about expenses right now. And there's not a slot to add in. Now, can I create that for you? Absolutely. And will it be relatively easy? Yes, but you have to ask yourself, do you want that to be part of? I think this business expenses, I wouldn't consider that income as much. I would, maybe my personal is where I would slot that. And I can certainly add it. We'll just leave it there. Let's go back to goals agent for a minute. There is an empty slot here that you could do something with. And the only thing we'd have to make sure is that if you put something in here, it's going to add it up to add this number. So Lance, you could right here put a number in. I make $2,000 a year from teaching. If I put a minus sign in there and 2, 1, 2, 3, it takes it off of there. Then you would label off to the side, additional income, additional whatever. Does that make sense? However, in my humble opinion, I would leave it off and try to push myself to do more real estate. That's just me. Just don't forget the minus sign, because otherwise it'll go up $2,000 or whatever additional you put in there. Then the next thing you have to do is figure out what your average sales price is. And I'm going to tell you that I am using someone in this company, someone you guys probably wouldn't suspect, and we'll leave it there. And these are real numbers. So none of these are unachievable. How's that? 265,500 is their average sales price. Where did I get that? Any thoughts? That's right. It's easy to get off the MLS. You could also figure it out from over here, because I've got 11 sides, and I could take my total sales volume and divide it by 11. That's not this person, obviously, but same thing. Take your total sales, divide it by the number of sides you have, gives you your total sales volume. However, if you don't have anything else, or you don't want to take the time to do that, I'm going to wag my finger at you for another reason. The company median is 200,000. Now, why did I do median instead of average? Speak up and in a microphone. Median takes off all of the outliers. So as a company, when I'm looking at us, if we have, 3 people who sold a mill and a half, that's going to throw the average off for everybody. So as a median number for the company is closer to the true number, but your number is more important than the company number, if that makes sense. The reason your number is more important is it tells you what kind of client you're working with and make your numbers more accurate. But if you don't want to find it, I've got it there.
I'm going to jump in real quick. My thought is, if you're going to do this, instead of using the MLS, I would definitely use your broker engine information, because if you're discounting commission, or if you're working with another person where you're doing a split with another person on co-listing or something like that, I noticed the sides, at least on mine, are figured up based on those that Sandra and I have shared. So that I like figuring up the average sales price based on that. I think that's more accurate than using the MLS.
That's the way I like it, but I'm going to tell you that for the purposes of what we're putting together, Dixie's method's not bad either, especially since she probably didn't share a lot. Then we've got this average commission per side, and you have to put this in. Now, I have to remember where I found that number. Was it fee summary? Nope. So it was year over year trend. There we go. So back to brokerage engine. If you want to know what you're actually charging your client, which is this number here, what my actual commission is, we all think 3% is it. But the fact is, we discount that. We pay for this. You need to know what your actual rate is. And so if you go back to brokerage engine, to that same report we ran, and remember, this is 21, this isn't 22. If you click over year comparison, it's going to tell you what your current year, what you charged people, and it's 2.39%. So what we're doing in our spreadsheet, now I'm breaking and telling you what we're doing. It's easy to come up with a spreadsheet that says, well, I always charge 3%. And this is the average price in the company, and blah, and this is what I actually, no, that doesn't work. This one breaks out when you hit a cap. This one breaks out what you actually charge people. What if you decided as a person you charge 4% if you've got both the buyer side and the seller side. Well, that's figured in here in your averages. So that's why we come back here to get the more accurate numbers.
So do that, go back to again where you got that in the broker engine.
Okay, inside broker engine. Remember, we did the agent report, agent production last year. So all the numbers are up there that had the total sides, GCI, agent gross, and then down just a little bit, it says year over year comparison. Yes, Dixie.
I don't have a microphone.
Give my-
So how come those numbers up there have red stuff and mine has green stuff?
I have no idea. Maybe to show us it's last year. I don't know. I'm using
Mine's last year also.
I'm using Sharon's stuff, and I'd have to. Well, I think I can probably tell you, her production went down 20% year over year. Her production went down 42% year over year. I bet
Mine are
yours-
all pluses.
You're a positive.
Yeah.
So should we use current year or previous year?
Personally, I believe you ought to use previous year because current year you don't have a full year. Now you could, if you want to, instead of using last year, there is a selection in here for the last 365 days. And that would work as well. And that would give you a more current one. You could do either one. Let's say, for example, let's use Lance for a minute. He knows that year before last, he had an absolutely terrible year, and this year he's rocking it. Well, then Lance wants to use the last 365 days. If you're the opposite, do the opposite. But for me, year over year, short of COVID, you're probably not going to be way up or way down unless there was illness or something that happened that changed it. Microphone.
So, and I know you and I have had this conversation before. Is this something that we should update the next, what our budget should be for the next 12 months every month, or just set it for January or our anniversary date where we cap and run with it?
The way this budget is set up is to give you daily goals for calling people and getting in contact and appointments, knowing how many listings and so on. If I were setting this up as a real budget, I would probably, and you and I can talk about this more, duplicate my budget tab, the entire thing, but fill it in every month. This month I spent this month I spent that month, and so on.
So what I was thinking is working backwards. In other words, the last 12 months, this is what my expenses have been. This is what my income has been.
You could update that, but that's going to be more of a personal choice. Remember, my goal here is how do I make sure my real estate career is going to satisfy my business? I'm not trying to be the say all, do all, end all to budgeting, but this is a good place to start. So let's come back to our page about things we put in here. I know from Brokerage Engine that 2.9% is what I actually charge people. So it would be too easy in other budget methods just to say, here's my average price. It's 200,000. I charge 3% every time. Here's my commission per side. What this thing is doing then, it actually figures from all this stuff how much you collect per closing on average. Let me say that again. That figure, average commission per transaction side, is how much you collect on average from each closing. So you can start thinking about it this way. For this person, wow, every time I get a new client, they represent $7,500 to me. That's a pretty healthy paycheck. I want to have more of them. Okay. It takes your commission split that was figured in the back, because let me go back to the percentage cap. Just jumping to show you where that number came from. This person, that's what they brought to the company. That's what they took home. 80% is their actual commission split by the time they pay all the caps. That number autofills here. So I don't have to go back and forth and look. That's the beauty of this sheet. is talks to each other. If my average commission per transaction side, and that's my average what I get to take home, my take home pay from every closing is $6,023. So then up here, if I said, this is how much money I need to make my personal life work and to make my business life work, and this is how much money I need per transaction, it's going to tell you how many transactions you need next year in order to satisfy that budget. Does that make sense to everybody? Do you see how it, in my opinion, I used to do all this by hand. Okay, I need, or I'd say, I don't give a darn, I'm just going to close everything I can get my hands on. But this, especially if you're working on a tighter budget, gives you a real number, an actual factual number that you need to keep going forward. Now, understand I'm using 2-year-old numbers. House prices have gone up. Lance's thought of using the last 365 days might be better because houses have escalated quite a bit. Just throwing that out there. That might be a good idea. But then it comes down to, what do you desire? Now, this isn't factual. This is what you desire. Some of you may prefer to work with buyers more than sellers. Then you would put in a number of 50% and 50-50. And personally, I think that's a decent number to shoot for. But some of you may prefer listings. Let's say Sherry Proctor, who does a lot of new homes. She would rather do 70-30. I can tell you, if you are giving yourself 30 or 70% buyers, you're doing yourself a disservice in this market. Listings are hotter and a lot more to sell. If this was a buyer's market, I'd be shooting for buyers, and you can adjust that. But 50-50 is a good number to shoot for. And if I'm shooting for that number, then what it's saying is, well, then you need 10 and 10 in order to get your 20. And it does that for you. Pending the close ratio. Now, these numbers come out of Dash. Dash is all of Realogy. So when an agent in this company enters a pending in our company, we send it up to Realogy. If it gets canceled, then Realogy says, oh, there's a canceled one, it's back on the market, whatever. So in fact, in 2018, according to Realogy, which is all of us, Coldwell Banker, Century 21, ERA, across the nation, 87.9% of the listings that go to contract close. 88.9% of the buyers that go to contract close. If your numbers are worse, you can fill them out. If you really want to know how to come up with your own numbers, I'll tell you, and then you'll probably go, I think I'll just use those numbers. That looks like a good number to me. You would have to count up all the buyer contracts you had last year, and then how many of your buyers didn't get the closing, and come up with a percentage to put in there. It can be done, but those aren't bad numbers. So if 87% of the listings that go to contract close, then based on the numbers that you built up here, you need to have 10 or 12 pending sales to have 10 that actually close. You follow how we're putting all the numbers together? How many active clients do you have to have? Well, this again says enter your own or use the numbers from list from Realogy again. And Realogy says you need to have X number of active clients that are out looking to get to pending to get to closed. And I would need 15 active listings in the year to get 10 that actually closed. Now, again, you can figure out all the numbers yourself, put your own numbers in or not. But what I'm trying to show you is this is where they're coming up with how many appointments you need and how many so on, and how many folks you need to talk to every week based on your dollars. These would all change if I change my dollars. Appointments to listings, again, this comes from NAR from 2017. Now that's probably accurate now that the market's shifting back to normal. They have a new book out for 2021, and I could put in numbers from 2018, but I'm pretty comfortable with those. So again, if I need to have 18 appointments to get 15 clients that are looking, to get 12 clients that go to contract, to get 10 that close. That's where all those numbers come from. Don't worry about them too much. They're in there. But if you want to change them, you can. And these numbers will change based on your dollars and how many transactions it says you need. So then on average, it's saying, and that they break that down by buyers and sellers because they're two different numbers. It says that you need to have an average of 2 appointments to come up with 1 closed transaction. Now I'm going to pick on Dixie for a minute because I know some experience she's had here. She's had a couple of Cartus sort of appointments that went really bad because the people weren't explained to them very well. On the other hand, I can tell you that Dixie's referral business is rock solid. She rarely goes to a referral appointment that she doesn't land. So understand how your numbers can shift around. But on average, if you include in her referrals and her Cartus, she needs 2 appointments. Does that make sense, Dixie? Okay. So then all these other numbers are going to kind of calculate and say, in order for me to get my 20 closings, I need 6 daily contacts. I should talk to 6 people a day. Now, we are not going to get down into this portion right now. Dixie has already figured out, remember I told you to find out where all your clients came from last year, and then figure out how many of them are buyers, how many are referrals, how many are so on. That's where we start putting these numbers in next week. But this week, Dixie can go and say, I didn't have 50-50 listings to buyers. I had 60-40. I had 40-60. And if you put those numbers in there, that's going to give you a more of an accurate number based on your track record, not necessarily what you desire. Does that make sense? Okay. So here's what I want. And we're doing all right. I would like you guys at a minimum next week to put in your business costs. I don't care about your personal. But at a minimum, if you figure out what it costs you to be in this business, and let's go back again, don't forget your cell phone. That's a business expense. I know in this day and age, it feels more like a personal. Don't forget if you print things. If you do magnets that you send out every year for the refrigerator, put those in there. Take your costs and fill these out. And once you fill out this page, start looking at your goal solo agent. Excuse me, you should also do your percentage from your cap first, right off the front. And then next week, we'll talk about the rest of the spreadsheet and your dailies and your hours worked and so on. Is everybody good with that? Is everybody's eyes crossing from all the numbers yet? Yeah, and CC says, yeah. Is anybody going?
But I will say that I don't think Lance has ever in his life made such a beautiful spreadsheet. It's visually stunning.
Well, then let me tell you, a friend of mine created this and I didn't.
Kudos withdrawn.
I did, however.
I don't add colors.
Yeah, I will say, however, that my friend did not have a percentage from cap. They hadn't figured that out. So I put that in for you guys. Because to me, this number is very important when you have caps and things that can mess with your closings a significant amount. Okay, any questions? Are we excited? Are you going to do it anyway? Yeah. Okay, then I'm going to see if Tulio had anything to add, because let me stop my share. See, Tulio. Oh, hi, Elena. Do either one of you have anything you'd like to add or ask, or is it pretty straightforward?
I think I'm good.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. I'm thinking to add something, but not right now.
Okay, and anybody has a question, you just ask Cece. She's the queen of this stuff. You're welcome, Cece.
Yes, thank you.
No, if you have questions, ask me. I'll be more than happy to help. I realize some of it's a little complex and it's tedious, but I think if, I know some people, and I'm going to pick on Elena a moment. I know right now she has a goal to talk to 5 people a day on the phone, and that's an outstanding goal, and I'm glad she's achieving it. What if her goal's not enough? Will she increase it? I don't know. What if her goal is double what she needs? Well, then I would encourage her to keep doing it. But it's nice to know what your goal needs to be so that you're making an intelligent decision. And that's all we're trying to get to. Okay, I'm going to stop recording.